so today I'm going to talk about a movie that I hope you've all seen because honestly it's probably one of the greatest movies of all time. It's Ratatouille, and that's what I'm going to be relating my speech to today. So in the movie, Remy is the main rat, and he pretty much wants to cook. So he goes from being in his little, big rat family, in like a little house in the countryside to actually cooking in Paris in a restaurant. So for my quote, it says, "The trouble with the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat." And this, I'm taking this kind of literally, but this is pretty much like the motto of the story in a way, because they say it a lot. And I'm going to be talking about an example of it in 3 different ways from the movie and in real life. I'm going to be talking about what it's like in a job situation, in living situations, and like cruel, unfair treatment in the Justice Department. So for the first one, I'm going to talk about living situations. So in the movie Remy, he is living in kind of like a terrible area, basically. This house in the countryside is where all of his family lives. They actually live in the roof of the house. And he and his brother Emile go into the kitchen to get spices so he can make this special mushroom. And he goes in and he is trying to sneak past the old lady that lives there. And when she sees him and Emile, she actually gets a shotgun and tries to shoot them. And then she ends up shooting like a hole in the ceiling so that the whole family's exposed and they have to go and run away. So I guess in real life that could be when families are evicted, and even if you think about it, like if any of you read The Diary of Anne Frank, like in 8th grade, how they had to be kept up in the ceiling for hiding. They did nothing wrong, that's just how it was, and I guess that's how it is for rats too. For the second thing I'm going to be talking about is jobs. So in Ratatouille, Remy eventually gets a job in the restaurant, and he and Linguini, that's the guy, the man in this, they find a way to actually have it so that Remy can cook for Linguini, so it could look like he is cooking, because he needs the job. It's a Pixar thing, it doesn't make any sense, but he stands on his head and pulls his hair, and somehow moves his body, so he hides under his toque, the chef's hat, and he pretty much, he does his job for him, and then Linguini gets all the credit for it, and Remy gets a little mad about that. So in real life jobs, you could be doing all the work, and someone else could be getting credit. And for the last one, kind of unfair, cruel punishment, is when in the movie Remy and his dad go through the streets and they go to a shop, which I don't think this actually happens in real life, but there are a bunch of rats in rat traps. It was kind of like a poison store, I guess. And Remy's dad brought him here because he wanted to show him, after Remy said he wanted to be with the humans and be like a chef and everything. His dad brought him here and he said, this is what we are and this is what we're always going to be. So you can't pretend that you're not just a rat. You can't pretend that you're a human. So I guess in real life that would be for people, I guess in third world countries, they, I guess, try to act like, they're part of society. They try to act like they actually need something, and they do, but they always end up getting treated really badly by the law enforcement, by people that are more in higher status than them. So I hope that you all understand that this movie means so much and it affects real life in so many different ways, and I think Pixar just nailed the situation. And this is true, that in a way, if you are in the rat race, you're probably always going to be a rat somehow, but you've got to try to get past it.
All right, Nikki, lots of things that are pretty solid here. I think let me start with one thing that's maybe a little bit negative. I like the idea of the movie that you're using, but telling us that you're going to talk about the movie, I think, is less interesting as an attention device than maybe telling part of that story at the beginning. Maybe that whole section where the Emile and Remy are in the woman's house and they're hunted down and the shot is fired. Use that maybe as the attention device, and then identify what your topic is and your point of view on it. I think that could be a little bit more interesting. Okay, that's it as far as it goes with the development that's negative. I thought you took a good idea and you ended up applying it in different places pretty effectively. You've really got a single example, but you're able to use it in multiple contexts. And I thought that was creative, and it was easy to follow. It's pretty well organized. I do think you could be a little bit sharper about what your point of view is on the quote, but I think everybody understands that, especially at the end, how you see things. The preview was excellent, so you set that up pretty well. And like I said, you depend a lot on telling the story that goes on in the film, but you always come back and relate it to the thing that you were talking about, the theme that just happens to match really well with the topic. So that, I thought it was developed pretty effectively. Presentation. It's easy to hear you. I do think you could project a little bit more. There's, I think, good variety in your tone of voice, and it flows together very smoothly. Lots of gestures that are indicative or descriptive while you're talking about it. Your facial expressions are usually pretty animated. Your eye contact, you do look up at the audience pretty regularly. Part of the problem, I think, is the configuration of the room where people are not spread out very much. They're kind of in these two opposite sides, and in your attempt to make sure that you contact everybody, I don't think you ever really engage with people. It's almost scanning. I don't think that you're avoiding anybody. I just think it's probably a function of the circumstances. So that's a little problematic. I did think it was strange that you kind of locked yourself into that one spot the whole time that you were speaking. You could step forward, emphasize a point, move over and talk to this group, move over and talk to this group, and I think be a little bit more animated that way. Speaking of animated features, that would be one way that you could be a little bit more animated. But otherwise, I didn't see any obvious issues when it comes to anxiety, and the conclusion of the speech had a pretty good exit line. Thank you.